Hello everybody, the History Guy here. I am ready to start a new series in one of my favorite games, and this is Hearts of Iron 4. I'm playing in the Great War mod, which is where you get to play through the events leading up to and including and after World War I. And so we begin in May of 1910, and I have chosen to take on the role of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I've only played through this game once, and that was as the Germans. I decided now that I will take on Austria-Hungary, but I'm hoping to take them in a very different direction. So as I'm playing through the game, during some downtimes, I'll talk a little bit about the history of Europe at this time and what happened in the events that led up to World War I. But mostly I'll just kind of be reacting to events as they unfold and responding to those things. If you're familiar at all with World War I or with the game Hearts of Iron 4, then you know that there are a lot of decisions that are going to be coming up that I'll have to choose, and hopefully I can take my country in the direction that I'd like it to. Anytime you start a new game of Hearts of Iron 4, the first thing you got to do is make a lot of decisions before you even start playing the game. And that starts with the national focus. And the national focus is where I am going to have the most impact on determining the direction that my country chooses to go. Now, Austria-Hungary, let me back up for just a second. At this time and place, the reason it's called Austria-Hungary is because it's actually a dual monarchy, which means it's simultaneously the kingdoms of Austria and of Hungary. They each have their own parliaments, their own governments, but they are both under the Habsburg Empire of Emperor Franz Joseph I. And so it's basically a united kingdom under one crown of two different countries. And they've recently also inherited Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that's part of the Balkans. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Balkans and how they impact everything as we go along. At this time and place, I am in what's known as the Central Powers, with the main player, which is Germany, which is arguably the most powerful nation in Europe in 1910. And basically, Austria-Hungary is the linchpin that kind of holds everything in place as far as whether or not World War I falls the way that it did historically, and I don't anticipate being a part of that. So we'll see what happens. I'll talk more about that as we go along. My goal is, at least for the first couple of episodes, to go through at least 1 year per episode, so I'm hoping to get through the end of 1910 in this one. And like any good game of Hearts of Iron 4, it's all about how you start out the game, and I want to make sure that I can get myself in a position to be strong enough that if and when war comes in 1914 or after, I am prepared for it. Austria-Hungary is not a powerful country at this time. They look like they should be. They're large. They take up a lot of territory. Basically, you're looking at the modern-day nations of Hungary, Austria, Czechoslovakia, parts of what became Yugoslavia, a big chunk of what became Romania, and parts of modern-day Poland as well. But they were not a powerful country this time, and they relied heavily on their tenuous friendship with the German Empire under Kaiser Wilhelm II. My goal is to change that. And it starts by changing the direction of my country. I'm an authoritarian empire right now, a dictatorship. I do not intend to stay that way. I'm actually going to go down the path of democracy. And that starts with political effort as a national focus. Next, I'm going to focus on getting the ball rolling with my industry, get myself in a strong position with my industry by laying the groundwork for what I need to do. There's a lot of things I can do to make that happen, but one of the things I have going for me is I'm very strong when it comes to a surplus of various production, tungsten, rubber, etc. Especially strong with wood, coal, steel, and oil, and aluminum. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my modification of the government, and I'm going to change my trade law to free trade. Now, that's going to give me a hit on the resources I'm producing, and I may need to trade for some things. But it's going to give me an increase in my factory output, my construction speed, and my research time. And I feel like that's more important right now. All right, let's take a look at some other things. Construction speed. We're going to speed up some more here. We're going to do give ourselves a hit to oil extraction, make that a little better. All right, so we got some dockyards. I'm not going to focus much on my Navy. This is mostly going to be a land war for me when the time comes. But I do have some free dockyards, so I'm going to go ahead and produce some battle cruisers. I've already got production started on protected cruisers and a pre-dreadnought, which is just ridiculous to me because that's a really old technology. So I'll let those play out, but I'm going to put most of my focus into battle cruisers moving forward. Military factories. I have no divisions in basic training at the moment. So let's go ahead and look at the division templates we've got here. All right, so we're going to make some of these. I don't know what the difference is between those, and these are just bigger. All right, so we're going to go with some traditional infantry divisions here. And let's start by queuing up 3 of those to start. And I'll start placing those in Bohemia, which is modern-day Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. I guess it would be Slovakia or the Czech Republic, which would be down in this area here. All right, so we'll start producing those. We'll see where things stand, and maybe I produce some more. But let's go ahead and build some civilian factories in the queue. Like I said, this is all about my base. I want to build up my base. I want to have the ability to sustain a war when the time comes. All right, so we've got some outdated equipment. I know that. That's the pre-dreadnought. And we'll go ahead and put the rest into building infantry equipment for now. And I have unassigned divisions. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and set up some armies here. Arthur von Bolfras, he is going to be the head of my Western Command, which I'm going to put out here on the border with Italy for now. And these are all just kind of the things you need to do to get started with the game. I can do probably some of these things with the military while I'm simming. All right, I think we're set to go. We're probably going to have some events trigger right away to start. All right, so welcome to the Great War. You're a veteran player. We've added new difficulties to the game. Not today. We'll just stick with right where we are. Now, if you are not familiar with my videos and you are discovering the history guy for the first time, one of the things that I like to do is talk about history and the events that are happening, and maybe share a few things that maybe you didn't know or you forgot while I'm playing the game. So it's a mix of gameplay, but also maybe a little bit of education as well. I was a history major in college. That's kind of my love. This is a combination of my two loves, my love of history and my love of gaming. So the death of Edward VII. Edward VII's life and namesake era have drawn to a close. Though in a state of grief, the new King George V has received is spelled wrong, it's I before E, except after C, his coronation. Time will tell if he can solve the turbulent situation in Britain that he has inherited. So Edward VII was the son of Queen Victoria, who is kind of called the grandmother of Europe, because most of the modern day, in our day and age, royal families that still exist in Europe all descend in one way or another from Queen Victoria. Obviously, Queen Elizabeth II of the UK, as well as her husband, are both descended from Queen Victoria. I believe that Kaiser Wilhelm II was as well. And then I know that there were also some relationships with Russia through a different line. But Queen Victoria, her children married into all the different royal families. So Edward VII did not reign very long. I think it was like 9 years, because his mother was on the throne so long. Kind of like what's going to happen to Prince Charles when he finally does accede to the throne in Britain. The Habsburg Empire once ruled large parts of Europe. By this point, they're down to just the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The empire that's ruling Germany is known as the Hohenzollerns, and it's a relatively new dynasty. I mean, it's not a new dynasty. They've been around for a long time, but they only come to the level of empire within the last 40 years or so before this time that I'm playing in now. The Albanians refused to submit to the Turks. A new Albanian uprisings begin in Kosovo and the northern mountains. Ottoman government declared martial law and sent a military expedition. All right, so the Ottoman Empire has been in existence at this point for hundreds of years. I think about almost 450 years or so. This is about as weak as they have ever been. As you see, they have a lot of territory, but they're really in a very weak position. They end up in a couple of wars with the Balkan states, which do not go well for the Ottomans. And so the Ottomans eventually did jump in World War I on the side of the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians, mainly over some things that they were at odds with Russia about. And then they were one of those empires that ceased to exist after World War I. South African independence. South Africa has become independent, and that happens right after Edward the VII has died. So a lot of things are happening in the world, and not just in Europe. You've got things happening in Asia. You've got things happening in Africa. You're going to have things happening in the Americas. So this was definitely a time of change in the world. All right, so I need to go ahead and we're going to trade with the Russians for now because they're right across the border. It makes it easy. Need to get those resources I need. So things are going to happen pretty fast with technology early on in the game, just because some of these research technologies only take a couple of months to play out. And I'm going to find myself in a position where some of the technologies I'd really like to go after, I'm just not going to be able to, because we're in 1910, and a lot of these things jump to 1916, and so you get that big penalty if you're researching a couple of years in advance. So I'm going to have to basically choose some things that I really don't care all that much about to research, only because I don't have a lot of options at the moment. All right, so let's take a look here. This is our Navy. And I'm going to go ahead and create another army here. And this is going to be my Balkan Command. And they're going to be responsible for this area here. And they may get some action before it's all said and done. And we'll go ahead and assign Karl von Flanzer-Balten to that one. Excuse me. So basic hand tools are done. Let's go ahead and work on Heavy Industry 1. Only take 82 days to complete that one. Alright, so my Balkan Command, we're going to go ahead and throw them right here as their front line. Just kind of bordering Romania for now, just to kind of have them there somewhere. Alright, so there's political effort. I've got some more political points I can spend. And here's where we make our first big decision in the focus tree. And that is, we're going to contest the Emperor's authority. So I'm going to undermine my leadership for now, but that's because I'm taking this the route of democracy, hoping that gets me in the good graces of the likes of the UK and France, unless France chooses to go socialism, which is a possibility. But assuming they go the historical path, let's go ahead and go with a war industrialist, which is going to help the military factory and dockyard construction speed. So I'm doing a lot of things that are going to improve my infrastructure early on in this game. I just want to get myself in a strong position, so by the time 1914 rolls around and there's that possibility of war, I'll be in a decent position to sustain that campaign. The Korean Empire, a Japanese puppet state since the assassination of Queen Min in 1895, has just signed a treaty with the Japanese government that resulted in full annexation. Though the Russian Empire and the United States are complaining about this measure, no official actions have been taken against Japan yet. It seems that Korea's legacy, a long legacy, will go out with nothing more than a whimper, and to that it says, oh well. So as I said, things happening all over the world. So there's a lot happening over there in Asia as well. We need to go ahead and get myself organized here. This is going to be my Northwest Command. Primary responsibility is the border with Germany, which of course they're my friends right now, but I don't anticipate it's going to stay that way. And once again, another technology to research. We're going to go with improved hand tools, so that's going to give me a production efficiency cap increase. If you're not familiar with the game, production's a big key part of it, and your efficiency cap is basically how efficient you can get. The longer you're developing a particular production, the more efficient you become at it. That just makes sense. And you have a cap. It basically maxes out at some point, and that will improve my cap, which means I'll become a little bit more efficient in my production. And of course, I'm going to have one more region where I'm going to assign an army for now. And that's going to be, we'll call it the Russian front for now. Just assuming the possibility of a war with Russia, I want to have troops on that border. So we're into August of 1910. It goes pretty slow for me early on. There won't be a lot, but Austria-Hungary is kind of the linchpin that pulls the trigger on the whole thing that becomes World War I. We'll talk about that more as we get a little closer to that date. But Austria-Hungary's got some issues with Serbia, with the Bosnians down here, and that is just really, it truly is a powder keg waiting to blow. And in the summer of 1914, it just exploded. And there were a lot of diplomatic failures, not only by Austria-Hungary and Germany, but Russia, France, UK were all involved in that. And at any point, any one of them probably could have stopped the freight train that was hurtling toward disaster. But the military leadership in each of these countries was pushing for mobilization. They were really just pressing the political leadership toward a war that none of them wanted, but they all felt helpless to stop. So let's take a look. We've still got the ability to modify government again. I don't think I can really do any of this. No. Limited conscription. I can't really go to further conscription until the war, until we get a little closer toward war. So let's see. All right, here we go. Air base, naval base, rocket site, radar station, and nuclear reactor. I don't think we need to worry about any of those right now. It's going to be a while before we deal with those things. All right, so we'll go with this one. This is going to give me a nice bump in national unity, which now goes to 85%. Doesn't matter right now, but when war comes, national unity will certainly be important. And we are into September now of 1910 and ready to make another research decision. I'm going to look at my land doctrine only because of this. I really want to focus on something like Grand Battle Plan as my doctrine, but before you can do any of these three doctrines, you have to completely go through this doctrine tree over here. In the decade in which I'm playing, especially the Central Powers, the cult of the offensive doctrine was everything. You'll hear that talked about a lot, the cult of the offensive. The belief among military leadership at this time was that you did not fight defensive wars. You went on the offensive, you took it to the enemy, and you overwhelmed him, and you defeated his will to make war before he even knew it hit him. And that was the operational theory for the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians, and it didn't work out particularly well for them, even early on in the war, and they figured out pretty quickly that was not going to be the way that they were going to be able to win. So that's pretty historical that we would be dealing with that and have to play through that tree before we go down the other routes. All right, so we've contested the emperor's authority. Now it's time to move on to the decision to be made about whether or not to pursue communism or democracy. I can't pursue communism right now because until communism kind of bursts onto the scene and the Soviet Union comes to power, I can't do that. So we're going to go democracy only because I have no other choice. All right, so we're going to go ahead and play this out until the end of 1910. So thinking long term, obviously I'm primarily going to be responding to events as they unfold. But if it's up to me, I have no intention of getting involved in the mess that happens with the Serbs and leads to World War I. So if I can avoid that, I'm certainly going to try. If and when I do go to war, I'll do so hopefully as a democracy, which means I will be on the side of the UK and France. So even if I do get involved in a war with, say, Russia, I hopefully won't also be at war with those other people. So we'll see how that all goes. I'm not really sure yet if I'll be able to go that route. I had hoped very much with Germany when I played them to avoid war as well, but it didn't work out that way. So I'm not holding my breath that'll happen here either. Portugal becomes a republic, mirroring their former colony, Brazil. The Republicans of Portugal have couped the monarchy. A string of blunders by the monarchy, mostly concerning the colonies and technological development, provoked a very small band of rebels to come together. So, Portuguese Republic is proclaimed. So, there's one republic. I will probably end up being another one of them at some point. All right, we're going to continue with focusing on resources here so we don't have to spend so much of our factories on trade. So let's take a look at trade right now. We've got surpluses everywhere. Let me look at production, construction here. I'm going to go ahead and queue up a few military factories behind these civilian factories, and eventually I'll build some more civilian factories. But I want to start increasing my ability to produce the military. So we're at the end of October now. We'll try to play this out to the 1st of 1911. I think I mentioned this already, but if I didn't, my goal is, at least for the first couple of years, to do one episode per year. As the game progresses and there are more units on the battlefield and wars begin, that will not necessarily be possible because inevitably there's lag and the sim speed slows down. Plus there's a lot more micromanaging that needs to happen with my forces, so it'll probably end up being more like every 6 months for an episode, and then maybe even slower than that. But we'll see, and we'll go along with that as best I can. If you are not familiar with my videos at all, another one of the things that I have mentioned in the past, and I'll mention again here, is that you'll notice I have no music playing in the background. And I have found that when I'm watching somebody else do commentary, because I enjoy watching these videos, I find it really distracting to me with the music playing in the background, especially if it's too loud. So I've chosen not to do that. But that said, Paradox games in particular, games like Hearts of Iron, have great soundtracks. Crusader Kings 2 has a great soundtrack as well. And I really love the music. So when I'm not making a video, I'm absolutely playing the soundtrack, and I recommend that you do the same as well. And there's some great mods out there to get you even better music. Whenever I'm playing World War II, I always use, there's a mod available on Steam that gives you all the soundtrack music from things like Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan or Pearl Harbor. And I love those soundtracks, and I love being able to play the game. It really immerses you in it to that. So, Revolution in Mexico. October 5th, 1910, Madero issued a letter from jail. Basically, they called the presidency of the existing president illegal, and now there is civil war in Mexico. We'll see how that plays out. So now we have things happening on every continent pretty much. Things in Europe, things in Asia, things in Africa, things in the Americas now. And now we are on to, we're going to give free speech to the people of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We'll see how that plays out. They may start speaking out against the emperor, and that may lead to his downfall. And I anticipate at some point we will probably become a republic. So we'll see how that goes. They do have elections. There is a parliament, but that parliament doesn't go all the way up to the level of ruling the nation. So we'll see how that all plays out when the time comes. And then the last thing I would say as we get to the end of December here is I'm going to do probably one episode per day of this game. So there's some time in there if you want to have some input into the direction I go. If you have played this mod before and you kind of know what to expect as Austria-Hungary and you want to give me a heads up, please feel free to do that. If you just want to offer suggestions about the direction that I go with this, whether militarily or politically, please feel free to do that as well. I welcome the input. I do not think I know it all, and I certainly don't know it all in this game or in this mod or as this nation. So I welcome the input. I welcome the constructive criticism about things I could be doing better. And if you have questions or just things you want me to show you how to do in the game, if you're not familiar with the game and you're just thinking about getting it, any and all things that you want to use that comment section for, please feel free to do that. And we're going to wrap things up here just a second as we get to the end of 1910. As always, I would greatly appreciate it if you'd hit that thumbs up and like this video. If you haven't already, if you'd subscribe, that would mean the world to me as well. I appreciate all the support. Check out some of my other videos. Most of them are Civil War, Ultimate General Civil War, but I'm trying to branch out and do some other things. So thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you back here tomorrow with 1911.